Hello everyone, I do hope you're keeping well. Now for today's tutorial, it's perfect for the beginner baker, whether you're covering a small cake or a very large cake. I'm using the tool, the mat. Now this prevents you from needing to use icing sugar. It helps prevent tears in the fondant. You are able to take your time rolling the fondant out as it prevents it from drying, and it's an excellent tool to help you if you are new to baking. As always, everything you need to know in this short step-by-step tutorial. Let's make a start. So this is what the packaging looks like, and for the purpose of this tutorial I am going to be covering a cake dummy, which is an excellent thing to do because cake dummies are actually more difficult to cover as they like to move compared to a real cake. It will come with these two large, food-safe, flexible plastic sheets. Okay, so start by taking one of the large pieces of food safe plastic. This might be a bit difficult to see once I've got it on the table. Just lay it down there completely flat. Remember what I said earlier, you do not need to use any icing sugar. Today I'm covering a 6-inch round 4-inch deep cake dummy, so for that you would need 600 grams of fondant. I simply place this directly onto the mat and just give it a little knead before shaping it into a bowl-like shape and then pushing it down. Remember to always try and roll your fondant the shape of your cake. So in this case it will be round, but obviously if you're doing a square cake, you want to try and keep it in a square-like shape. You then want to take the other half of the mat and place this directly over the top and try and line it up with the base mat. Because your fondant is in between these two food-safe, flexible plastic sheets, that is what prevents it from drying. But these mats are also non-stick, so your fondant won't actually stick to it whilst we are rolling it out. Using a large rolling pin, I simply start to roll out the fondant, again trying to keep this in a circular shape. So I go from different angles. You might find you want to apply quite a lot of pressure, so the heavier the rolling pin, the easier this can make it. But as mentioned previously, if you are new to baking and stuff like this makes you really nervous, you could literally just leave this, go away and have a cup of coffee, and the fondant will be perfectly fine because it's completely protected from the air. So it's going to prevent it from tearing, and what you're going to see next, it makes it super easy to add to the cake. So continue to roll until it's roughly large enough to fit on the cake. You will know this by measuring the top and the sides. So if it's a 6-inch round and 4 inches deep, you've got 6 plus 8, and that's roughly how wide it needs to be. All you want to do now is peel away the plastic sheet on top of the fondant. This is being slowed down slightly just so you can see how easy it is. Leave it on the base sheet. This is why it's super easy if you are a beginner baker. You are literally able to just lift the fondant up using the plastic sheet. I then bring in my cake dummy. Bear in mind this is slightly more difficult to cover because the cake dummies do like to move. You place the sheet directly over the top and then simply peel away the plastic. Now unfortunately, no matter what they invent, you will always need to then negotiate the pleats. Now just remember, because you have rolled it in between those two pieces of plastic, this has not been exposed to the air, so it will give you longer working time. Just a few tips. You need to use the right amount of fondant for the sized cake you are doing. If you roll out too much, you will end up with too many pleats and it makes it more difficult. If you're not aware of this, covering a larger cake is a lot easier, believe it or not, than covering a smaller cake, just because of the amount of pleats you get is actually less. And finally, and this one is probably one that you won't believe, covering a square cake is actually more difficult than covering a round cake. Be one with the fondant and don't let it win. Take your time. The mat has already given you that little bit of extra time. The fondant's not going to set straight away. As you can see, I don't have any tears, and I'm just taking my time negotiating the pleats around the outside. Once I have done that, I simply cut off the excess fondant and then go around with some smoothers. So here you can see me just smoothing it out. Again, the fondant's still not completely set. I've got plenty of time. The cake dummies are never very smooth anyway, so you will get a much better finish on a real cake. I don't really need to use the mat anymore. I used it when I first started because it stopped things from setting. However, I have found if you are making an extremely ridiculously large, deep cake, then this can be extremely helpful because it just gives you more time to work with the fondant and avoid it from tearing. I really do hope I've helped you all again today. A very simple one, excellent for beginners, and I will be back soon with an awful lot more new, completely free content.